Everybody, my next guest is a very funny actor and comedian who has been featured in the Make Me Laugh and Hoboken Comedy Festivals, as well as the World Series of Comedy, and he's now making a name for himself as an actor for his work in The Connie Show and Tomorrow's Today. Here he is, folks, the one and only Adam Gabel. Adam, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how are you? You know, I don't really think of myself as an actor. I appreciate the compliment, but I'm not really much of an actor. I can kind of do me, but like I can't. Every time somebody says you're making your name for yourself as an actor, I'm like, I hope not.
So you're not. I think you should continue acting and maybe try to do like you know that's something that's not cast, like that's not typecast or made for you. Like try to be. What would be the opposite of your character?
I have a perfect example of you. I have a perfect example. So, I was in the movie Tomorrow's Today, and I did the Connie Show and some other things that I've done. And an actor that I know who's a comic and a bunch of different things, he was leaving his agency and he was like, there's an open spot. And I was like, oh, I'll take that spot, right? Because, whatever, I'm not going to. So, and the agent that I talked to, he was like, oh, yeah, I know you because that guy does voiceover and a bunch of other things. He was like, yeah, I saw you do comedy. I didn't realize you were an actor. Let's get together. So I was like, great, I can do this, no problem.
Right.
He sends me in for an audition, and I read it, and it's basically like sad middle-aged man who can't believe what's going on. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This is very easy for me, like in disbelief, right? And so I went to the first audition, and I had a great time. I did exactly what I thought I was supposed to do. And they gave me a callback, and I go back to the callback, and the client who's on the phone is like less, more subtle. We want you to just kind of be less in disbelief. And I've been on this thing about a minute and a half, and I've already turned 100 of your listeners off. So subtlety is not something I do well. When you ask me to be less of me, I can't really do that. So that's why I say I'm not an actor, because you got to be able to play a wide range of things, and I can do this thing that I do very well. But
yeah, I think that's what I look for. Like if I'm doing a movie and I'm casting a movie and I'm casting, people that I know and I'm handpicking, I kind of want them to be them. Like if I'm going to put you in a movie, I kind of want that Adam Gabel vibe. I want you, to be you. I want the whole thing, the hat, the whole vibe, and I want you to be you. It's when you start to step outside of that, like you said, and start going on auditions and start trying to really do it. That's when they might, say, well, Adam, we love what you're doing, but can you take off the hat? Maybe can you do something with the voice? It's a little raspy.
Right. Well, yeah. So the movie, the movie I was in Tomorrow's Today, that Greg, it was originally called Charlie Boy. He when he asked me to do it, he said, I got a perfect part. It's perfect for you. And I was like, that's great. He's kind of an angry New York liquor store guy. And I was like, that's great. No problem. And he goes, his name is Julio. And I go, hold on a second. You wrote a part for me, and the guy's name is Julio. So if you go and you look and you watch the credits, you'll see it's Julio Goldstein. I wrote that in. I was like, no one's going to believe me. It's like Julio Figueroa, or you know what I mean? Or like Vasquez. So I figured you believe me as a guy who's got a Jewish father and a Puerto Rican mother, right? And that's what I was, and as an actor, you got to write the backstory. So I was like, this is perfect. Now I got a reason for this guy to be so pissed off all the time. He grew up and he's not accepted by the Puerto Ricans and he's not accepted by the Jews and he hates everybody. And I was like, this is phenomenal. This I could do, no problem. But that's
method acting. You're a method actor. You got into the Julio Goldstein vibe, and you got the backstory going, and I think you are an actor.
Well, I'll say this: it's not really acting. I just justified my own natural feelings. That's not really acting, right? That's just like figuring out a reason to be an asshole all the time. Yeah, but I mean, like, I think that I think that there is a particular kind of character actor that that I identify with, and I think that that's an easy place to put me in. Also, I've been in the entertainment business. I've been doing comedy about 10 years, but I started in high school doing lighting, so I've been doing lighting like professionally since I graduated college in 1999. So I've been around the entertainment industry, and that allows me to sort of, um, you know, what's the word? Assimilate into a variety of different entertainment. I know what it's like to make a film, so you put me in front of the camera. That's not hard. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that's another thing I mean, I've been around for a long time. People are surprised. I just turned 47. People are often
Oh
surprised
yeah,
about that.
you look good for 47,
Thank you very
man.
much. I
Yeah.
used to be, I used to be pretty. When I started doing comedy, I was about 65 pounds heavier. But I found that I didn't really like. I felt like it was a little. It was like I was too fat to be a thin guy and too thin to be a fat guy, and sort of. And you got to be something in comedy. You have to. You got to be. You have to have a definitive answer for everything. Is he fat? Is he thin? Is he old? Is he young? Is he this? Is he that?
Right. Yeah,
You can't just be wishy washy.
if you're in the middle, yeah, like you said, it could be a weird juxtaposition if you're in the middle. Then you just
Right.
then you just Julio at that point.
Right. Just Julio. Exactly.
No, but I think that being a light. So you were a lighting guy on film sets and stuff like that.
Not so much film, mostly television and theater.
Wow.
I did a little bit of video stuff before that movie, but actually, then they found out that then they found out I was a lighting designer, the lighting director, and they had me light the movie. So I wound up being around the whole movie all the time, and there was a couple things that they threw me into, a couple of I mean, probably. I was there. They're getting paid to. I was there getting paid to light the thing, and they're like, "Oh well, let's get this incidental shot of you in there." So I was happy to do. I was getting paid more to be a lighting guy than I was an actor at that point. So, but yeah, so I started doing theater. Right out of, I did a show. I did one show on Broadway. I was the second assistant on the show with Patrick Stewart.
Wow, that's
And
huge.
yeah, I've done, and then I started working at this venue called Joe's Pub, which is downtown, and that connected me with a lot of people. So I was on the road with this flamenco dance company for 3 years, and we worked at the Hollywood Bowl, and we went to Argentina, and then I was on this bus and truck tour of the show Grease with Cindy Williams and Eddie Mecca from Laverne and Shirley, which is
Wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and
cool,
then
man.
yeah, and then I did some TV news and some sports and some stuff like that. Finally did all of that stuff, and then I was like, I should go back and start telling jokes. By the
When
time I got into the comedy, I was like old hat in the entertainment business. I knew how to be everywhere.
there's so much you could learn, just by being on set, like just by absorbing it all, osmosis and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And people don't realize, and I realized this just, being on different movie sets myself and all that, how important lighting and how difficult lighting is. It's not easy to do. Like it's not easy to get the right lighting for the right
right,
scene and to set certain tones and all that kind of stuff. And that's, to me, the lighting and sound are two of the things that get overlooked all the time, but
right.
but are so vital. They're so
Yeah.
important.
Well, particularly with comedy, I mean, you need to hear the people, but what is it? We're visual creatures. We see before we hear, and you really need to be able to see. That's why I'm always with the hat. And it's like I think that comedy is very much about branding, and it's very much about I see something, I understand what it is. So, and lighting is, I mean, obviously it's huge, but I don't think people realize um, kind of what the kinds of problems that affect people. I mean, you don't want, there's that the Two-Face episode of Seinfeld where he's dating the one girl and she looks different. Go back and look at it. The only thing they did to make her look ugly is put a downlight on her face. Then they put some shadows under her eyes and under her cheekbone. She's just got a downlight. How many comedy shows have you seen where they just turn on the overhead lights and you're standing there and nobody can see your eye sockets and you got a hard shadow? And honestly, a lot of people who particularly can't hear, use facial recognition and movement of the mouth to understand what the person is saying. So if you can't see, you can't hear either.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And yeah, because I'm an editor by trade, so a lot of times I'm playing with those
Right.
things, because if you want to key in on like somebody, you make sure you put a close up on them or whatever, so this way that their audio stands out, just because now you're seeing them. So like I said, all the senses kind of work in favor of the edit, and whether it's a good edit or a bad edit, you have to it all
Framing is
determines it.
framing is really important. I mean, I see a lot of people on who put the reels on online, and I mean, it's not vertical. It's everyone's looking at it vertical. It's got to be vertical, or it's vertical, but they're tiny,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The screen is huge, and I mean, I always zoom in, and I mean, if you look at some of my reels, excuse me, if you look at some of my, I bet you thought my voice was going to sound normal after that.
Awesome. Awesome.
If you look at some of my reels, if you'll see that they're a little bit out of focus, and that's because maybe I was a little bit too wide when I zoomed in. But I would rather be a little bit out of focus, but at least be able to see the person's face better. So I would always, if you're listening to this and you're a comic and you're looking and you're looking to improve your online, not that you should use me for social media at all, but always zoom your videos in so that we can see your face, because that's why the people who are sitting 5 feet away from you are laughing, because they're looking at your face. They're not in the back of the room looking at the whole thing. Even if they are in the back of the room, their eyes are focused in on you.
Right.
They're not looking at the whole room.
Right. Yeah.
We do a lot of work. Our eyes and our brain do a lot of work, and we don't realize it. And video doesn't do that. So when you're putting together a video, and again, you're an editor, you know that you got to do a lot of work that our brain and our eyes are doing for us in real life.
I think that definitely what you're doing as a lighting director is clutch, and people don't realize. They just think, oh, he's just
Right.
moving lights around.
Yeah.
No, man, it gets complex and complicated, and all of that. And you've done it on big levels. You've done it on Broadway and in TV shows and
Yeah.
tours, with Cindy Williams, man.
The other thing I think is, I was telling this about somebody yesterday, is like, this is people might get angry at me, but I don't think stand-up comedy is a skill, because it's writing is a skill. Writing is a skill. But somebody was saying to me yesterday, well, I can't do it. And I was like, you can't do it? You can't get on stage and talk into a microphone?
Right.
You can't do. I can't hit a fastball.
Right.
I can't. Right. I can swing as many times as I want. You could get on stage and talk into a microphone. The writing is the skill. But so I'm confident, and a lot of comics don't write. I mean, Bob Hope didn't really write his own jokes. He was very good at delivering them, but really, I mean, in that case, he was getting rid of your nerves, and that's a lot. That's a lot about just being in the moment. I mean, most of us could do that moment if we needed to, but I always say most of the comedy is in the wood. Most of the could is in the wood. You meet people on, oh, I could do that if I wanted to. Well, you don't want to, which is why you can't.
Right. Exactly. And I think too, there is something. I agree with you. I believe that conceptually, anybody can get up on stage and do and talk into the microphone, right? But there is also who's looking comfortable on stage, likability, all those kinds of things, and then that also, like you said, does go into the writing and the technique and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just like all art, dude. Like,
Right.
I could draw, I could sing a song, I could
Yeah.
dance, but then you see other people that can really draw, or really, you know what I'm saying? So there's a difference, but yes.
Well, I mean, look at Jackie the Joke Man, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He hasn't written a joke.
Right. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
All he does is get on stage and do the same thing. Look, I was working, I still do lighting for money because I got 2 kids and I live in Brooklyn and all that stuff. So I still need the money. And comedy, you can't send your kids to college on drink tickets. So I was working with this guy, Bobby, last week, and we're all standing around, we're waiting for some shit to happen. So he goes, a guy walks into a bar and he tells us a street joke. and he tells it exactly with the exact same fervor that Jackie the Joke Man would. And I'm not
Right.
putting down Jackie the Joke Man. I'm
Right.
not. I have a lot of respect for him. He's huge career, done a lot for comedy. I think he's hysterical, and I'm not going to say that I'm not diminishing. I'm not diminishing what he does. But anybody can tell a joke,
Right.
right?
Right.
Anybody can. If you've ever seen, so that to me is when I say that there's not a. How do you learn to be comfortable on stage? I mean, that's not a skill. Can you learn? Can you hone the skill of being comfortable on stage? I don't think that's a skill.
No. Yeah, I think that's one of those things where people say you either have it or you don't type of thing. Like or if you're comfortable on stage or if you're likable on stage and all that stuff. And there's the the it factor and all those types of things that people, they either do have it or they don't.
Right, right, right.
And I think it has a lot to do with all art. It's emotion. It's if it's coming from a real place, even in comedy you'll see that. You see that in acting, you see that in art and paintings and
Right.
dance and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a lot to it. But to your other point too, it's where it's the would and the could.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, most people are terrified to get up on stage and try to be funny in front of strangers.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, but that's what I'm saying is getting rid of that terror of that fear. Is that a skill? Would you say that, that guy that who is always happy all the time? Would you say that that's a skill? I wouldn't say that that's a skill, right?
Right, right, exactly.
I wouldn't say that's, I mean, I can't. So anyway, what I'm getting at is every comedian has another skill, at least one other skill. And I always, I'm very good at writing. I'm also good at lighting, which if you have a stereotypical 1940s Asian accent, those are the same word, but I don't.
That's good. I love that. That's hilarious.
um, but, but, I always encourage every comedian to find the thing that they're good at that other comedians aren't good at and use that as a way to, to further your career or get involved with the right people or even just make your own shit look better. If you're good at Photoshop, even if you don't want to make other people's flyers, have the most amazing flyers ever so that people go, wow, let me look at that or whatever it is, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I do think that most comedians that I've been around are good at other things as well, like you said, and mostly it is in the art world, oddly
Right.
enough. You know?
Some of them, I know this guy. Do you know Adam Mueller? He's another New York comic. He just put out his second special on YouTube. He's a peer of mine. We work together a lot. He went to MIT and was with Goldman Sachs. So he's like a numbers, like a real math guy.
Wow.
But he used that to have a better understanding about the technical aspects of art. So he's learned cameras and he's learned lighting and he's learned sound and he comes at everything from a very technical kind of perspective. But yeah, I mean, almost anything can be applied to art. That's the fun thing about it.
Right. And with with Goldman Sachs and math and all that kind of stuff too. I'm not good at math, but math is also you could apply to these
Yeah.
things as well. Like if there may be some equation, some mathematical equation how to get to the funny. Like where's
Well, I was going to say that is that I do a lot of short one-liner kind of jokes. If you listen to my album, which is called None of This Is True, you can hear it on Spotify, Amazon, Google Play. You can go to adamtellsjokes.com and click listen at the bottom. If you go to my album and you listen to the first 3 or 4 tracks, it sounds like I'm telling you I'm talking about something, but it's just a bunch of one-liner jokes that are stacked on top of each other. So it sounds like I'm talking about dating, but it's really just a bunch of different jokes that I've shoehorned into being about dating. I'm dating again. I'm trying to catch myself up on the sexual techniques I've missed in the last 15 years. Have you guys heard about this new thing called her needs? And in those type of jokes, I have spoken to a number of other comics who write jokes like that who were very good at math, because you go like this plus that equals this humorous, because that's a lot of what comedy is what if I took this situation and combined it with that situation, it would lead to this result. Right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I'll give you a perfect example of that joke. He-Man email signature. He-Man's email signature says He-Man, he/man. Right, it's not a magnificent joke, but you can see exactly what I'm saying. I took an 80s reference, I added a contemporary thing, and then I got this result. This times that equals this. So I think a lot of joke writing can be very mathematical. But not for everybody. I mean, I don't think a Chris Rock joke is like that. A Chris Rock joke is much more of an emotional kind of connection. Keith Robinson used to have this thing about the front of the bus comedy and the back of the bus comedy, right? One of his albums is called The Back of the Bus.
Right.
And the comparison is like, you got two different kinds of comedians. You got the guy in the front who's trying to make the teacher laugh with some sort of smart historical reference, and then you got the kids in the back who are just snapping on each other. And the snaps may not be the smartest joke, but they're going to hit really hard because you're going to understand the emotion of that thing. Right. Whereas there may not be any emotion connected to, my joke about the French Revolution, but if you have your own feeling about that, then that's going to connect to that feeling. So I think it's two different kinds of comics, I think.
Yeah. So like you got your, like, Seinfeld would be a front of the bus comic, I would think.
Here's the thing is that, this is what's interesting about it. He's not. He's a back of the bus comic. But the best of every comic is really good at the other thing. Because if you think about it, he's not. Most of what you're laughing at with Seinfeld is not the humorous wordplay. Most of what you're laughing at is this is ridiculous. This aspect of this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then his tagline is the smart front of the bus kind of joke.
Right.
Goldman is like that. Goldman is like that. He does a lot. Gary Goldman has a big thing about, I can't remember exactly how he gets into it, but the joke is about how Jesus was very loving and he was a very open spirit. And he doesn't like it when people use Jesus to exclude other people, right? He's saying he was a very welcoming. Jesus was a listener, right? That's why I like to think of him as the Frasier of Nazareth, which is a very funny line, Frasier of Nazareth.
But Christianity, without a doubt, the most successful spin-off in entertainment history. I like to call Jesus the Frasier of Nazareth.
But he's got you beforehand with the emotional feeling about whatever that joke is, about how you're laughing at the ridiculousness of using Jesus to hurt people. Right. You're laughing at that, and then he hits you with Frasier of Nazareth, and that's just another way to double down on the point.
Yeah, I think that's interesting about this kind of the structure, the joke structure style.
Yeah.
And then when you everything, I'm just kind of going to go over everything you were just saying. Then you got the front of the bus comics, and then the back of the bus comics. And then, so where would Gary Goldman be? Well,
this is the thing, is that Gary Goldman is a back of the bus comic because he's connecting with you emotionally.
Right.
But he's so good as a comedian that he's bringing elements of the front of the bus comedy into it. And it's the same thing. I mean, like
Chappelle? Chappelle should be both, too.
Well, but that's the thing. He's a back of the bus comic, and he brings in elements of the front of the bus, right? Like Hedberg is definitely a front of the bus comic, but he does have some of those jokes where you go, yes, this is ridiculous, right? Like the donut joke is a perfect. Nobody would say any. Hedberg is definitely a brainy, smart wordplay comic,
right?
But the donut joke about the receipt for the donut, that's a back of the bus joke.
I bought a donut and they gave me a receipt for the donut. I don't need a receipt for a donut. I'll just give you the money You give me the donut and the transaction. We don't need to bring ink and paper into this.
I don't need a receipt for a donut. You just give me the donut, I give you the money, end of transaction. Right? There's nothing wordplay about that.
Right.
That's a humorous emotion. Then he brings in the thing about, he goes, I can't even imagine a situation, and then he goes, I can't even imagine a situation where I would need to prove that I bought a donut, right? He's like, don't even act like I didn't buy that donut. I got the receipt. It's at home filed under D for donut, right? And then that's the front of the bus line.
Right.
Because he brings in the idea of like the D for donut. That's an intellectual reference that we understand.
Right.
That you're filing this thing under the letter. That, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, like, would you say that most successful comics are somewhere in the middle of the bus?
I would say that most successful comics are at one side of the bus, but really good at adding elements of the other part of the bus. You're still going to be, because you're not going to change the thing you like about that person, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you like Jeselnik, you like him because So
Jeselnik he's a back of the bus, but he's also front of the bus too. Like
But that's the thing, is I don't know whether or not you'd say he's a front of the bus comic or he's just a back of the bus comic who's really good at the front of the bus stuff.
Right.
That's why I say you're not in the middle.
Right.
Because who you are at the core is not going to change.
Right.
The reason you got into comedy to show the absurdities of life, or to show the absurdities of the way we feel, or to show the absurdities of the absurdities of the way we think. That's really two different things. But really, you got to be able to do both of them. And I think that if you go and that's one of the things I tried on my album. A lot of the first few tracks, it's just a lot of smart, wordplay or whatever kind of thing. Right. Not all wordplay, but that kind of thing. Like the escalator turns into stairs, like that kind of thing. The heady
right. Yeah.
And then this back of it is a lot more about experiences that I've had that I feel a certain way about. And I think, I'm not going to compare myself to the people I was just talking about, but I think that if you're going to be a successful comic, you need to be able to look appropriately, because I think most audiences don't live in the middle. Most audiences live in the front or they live in the back.
Right.
They're not, if you're in the middle, you're going to connect with a lot more people, but you're not going to have people who are, and I've seen it a million times I go out, I do my joke, and I obviously I open with a joke about my voice. I got to get that out of the way, and that's an emotional thing. Right. This is weird, right? You thought this was stand-up comedy, and this is like I came up here to run some kind of anti-smoking PSA, right? That's
right. Yeah.
That's an emotional thing, right? This is off-putting. Then I do a joke about how I can't help it, I'm just a comic. And again, this is like me shoehorning two jokes together. But then I do a joke about how I won a ton of money on this gambling app called TurboTax, right? So that's a very fun.
That's it. Yeah, that's great.
Right. So, but the thing about that is that you go, oh, because that's not an emotional joke. That is 100% misdirection. I tricked you into thinking one thing, and now you think something else.
That's a front of the bus joke.
Yeah, that's the front of the bus. So I try and start with a back of the bus joke. We feel uncomfortable about how this is.
Right.
And I do a front of the bus joke. And I can hear the back of the bus people getting disappointed when I do the front of the bus joke. I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear the people who laughed, because I do a lot of roasts. That's one of the things that people have gotten to know me a little bit with, both in the underground New York scene and the Long Island scene. Because roasting is a really good mix of both, because you have to know how you feel about the person, but man, you can't just say that guy's fat. You got to say, he's, you look like if James was the giant peach. That's what I said about John Butera. You got to do a joke. It's got to have a front of the bus quality to it.
And speaking of sight gags, Fat Jay is over there, whose sight is currently making me gag. We've never met. I thought with a name like Fat J, it wouldn't be that hard to figure out which one he was. But I didn't realize I was going to have so many options.
One of the things that I've gotten to be known for is the roasting, and I think that I was able to really make a better. Let me go back to what I was saying before about the back of the bus people. They hear me do 2 jokes where I'm roasting myself, and they get really excited. And then I do a joke that's kind of bullshit nonsense, and they go, "Oh, this is going to be a lot of bullshit nonsense. I'm out." Right. And I think that one of the things that helped me in roasting was trying to make those brainy jokes have an emotional feeling to them. And I think that that's, I tried to bring that a little bit more to my album. I'm trying to do that more with because I don't know, every comic takes them 10 years to get your first album, which means that at least there's 6 years of material there, right? Like maybe maybe the stuff you wrote in your first couple of years isn't usable, or maybe, you know, a couple jokes, but whatever, you have 10 years to get that out. Now here's your next one. You can't wait 10 years. You got to get another one out in 2 years. So you have to try and learn everything that you learned in the last 3 years and wrote 15 minutes of, and try and push that into a whole new thing. Right. But you know, that's a different.
No, but I mean, your album, none of this is true. It's out on all those streaming services. I watched a bunch of clips of it. Very funny stuff. And one thing that comes clear is that you are a thinking comic, or you could tell you write. I would assume that you write a lot, and
I write a lot.
And I mean, it's brilliant stuff. I know you've been, compared to Hedberg and Stephen Wright and guys like that, but I think you have your own persona. I think the writing might be there, but I think you have your own vibe, which is a good thing. And you're a little more loose than those guys. Those guys were more like Mitch Hedberg, just like the other day, what is a sesame? What does a sesame grow into? Where I feel like you have more of a flow, like a storyteller comic, but you're throwing in these one-liners that are sharp and funny, and like you said, a lot of them are personal towards who you are. And there's some of them that are also kind of perspective on life and things like.
You probably don't realize this, but you are not allowed to take pictures of any of these buildings. It's a precaution against terrorism. I was like, excuse me, sir, but you probably don't realize this. We are in Pittsburgh. No one from ISIS is going to attack Pittsburgh, because no one from ISIS has ever heard of Pittsburgh. The only way a terrorist is going to fly a plane into one of these buildings would be by accident.
Do you consider yourself a one-liner comic?
It's so funny because it's like people have often said that about me, and when I was early on, this idea of grouping a bunch of jokes together only started because I felt like audiences were tuning out. I felt like audiences were having difficulty keeping up with me jumping all over the place. And I think that there's a cynicism left in particularly the people who are younger today, that anything that feels like a joke is corny. You know what I mean? You can't just say something is a joke, because there's this thing about dad jokes and corny jokes and puns, you know what I mean? Like, there's too many. And I got into this. I started to realize that if people realized that that's what I was doing before they found me funny, they would not find me funny. But if I could get them to think I was funny before they realized what I was doing, then they would stay on board with it the whole time.
I knew that I was failing as a father when my daughter used air quotes. Even worse, she did it while describing me as a comedian.
So yeah, that's where the joke stacking thing came together. A bunch of jokes about my kids, so it feels like you're learning something about my children, but you're really not. You're not learning anything about my children. In fact, I work very hard so that you have no idea who my kids are because I don't want you fucking harassing them.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No,
And
but
then
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so then I also have developed a little bit of a self-deprecating aspect, which there's a little bit of it on the album, but it's hard to pull off when everyone's laughing at everything you say, which is what happens at an album taping. At a live show, at some point, there's going to be one joke, even when I'm killing, there's going to be one joke that they didn't like as much as the other jokes, and it's easy to incorporate. So I've got a bunch of stuff written for those moments. It's hard. It was hard to do on the album because you said you heard some clips. There's one part where I was trying to do a joke. I was trying to do this joke about how the line went, I've traveled all over the place to do comedy, but you really got to come to New York to get this kind of hostility, right? So that's the joke.
Right.
But the audience applauded when I said New York.
Ah, yeah.
So it ruined the joke.
Yeah,
It's not even that they stepped on it. They were being supportive because they were there to support me.
Right.
Right. That's not most shows. Most shows are not mostly people that I know who want to come. Because when you record an album and nobody knows who you are, most of the people there know who you are.
Right.
And that you have a relationship with them. And I mean, I think that's the case of everybody's first album. You got to sell out 2 shows. You don't know, you got to get 50 people who you know in the room. So if you try and so the point I was making is that there's a lot of self-deprecation that you see if you see it on my Instagram a lot, because I post those clips a lot. And I think in those cases that has developed out of just being in the New York scene in the late 20 teens and the early 2020s, when there's a million fucking open mics and everybody is cynical and everybody wants to hate comedy. If you went to go see Stephen Wright in 1983 and you went, I don't get it, you're going to go, I'm the problem.
Right, exactly.
If you went to see me in 2018 and you went, I don't get it, he's the problem.
Right, yeah.
Because there was our society has shifted a little bit based on a bunch of different things. There's been a lot of, but also there's a million comics out there and there's a million comedy shows. And whereas in the 80s, you didn't see anybody on screen doing comedy unless they were on The Tonight Show or they were on HBO or, you know what I mean? There wasn't like, oh, I'm going to watch my neighbor who's got 15 fans do a 20-minute set.
Right.
That didn't exist.
True. Yeah, right.
You were watching comedy in the 80s. You believed that you were seeing something good. And it was like that in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, nobody, like Jerry Lewis started as a lip sync act. He would go into clubs and lip sync along with an album.
Like jazz stuff,
Yeah. Could you imagine if somebody did that now? They would
Exactly.
get this fucking out of here.
Right.
But in 1965, if you got up and you walked out of a supper club, you would never live it down.
Right.
You would never go back there. Your neighbors would know. Don't invite that guy to a party. He's going to be rude. You sat there and you watched it. And if everybody else laughed, you laughed. That is not doing comedy in New York in the last 10 years. So because of that, I had to develop a more of a thicker kind of skin, and which probably anybody who knows me is laughing at, but at least on stage, showed up.
Right.
One comic once said about me, nobody heckles Adam like himself. So you got to be able to do that. And I don't think I think that's a new phenomenon in comedy that really wasn't present and is one of the things you said. It separates me from guys like Hedberg and Stephen Wright. Hedberg's got the one joke about he goes, this album will be in stores. The only way my last album was going to be in a store is if I brought it there and left it.
Right.
And you kind of believe that, but you don't really believe it. You don't believe that anyone thinks bad of him. You know what I mean? It's not.
Right.
That's more of that joke is more making fun of other people than it is making fun of himself.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, to your point, like for comparing like the '60s comedy to today and how the audience has evolved. I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of stuff, but mainly I think they were taking the people take it for granted. The experience, the going out
Yeah.
and all that. Where back in the day they used to dress up in suits and it was a night out and they wanted to enjoy it. Now it's just like people kind of strolling in, and then they'll just go home later and tweet about it or whatever and all that stuff. But so I think the audience has definitely changed, but I think that the comedians are kind of evolving along with it. Like to your point, how you said
You got to be a better. You got to be a better comic. You have to be. You can't just do one thing anymore. You have to be able to be. You have to be able to connect to everybody, and particularly with social media, because the other thing is, like, if you didn't like comedy in the '60s and '70s, you just didn't go to a comedy club and you never saw it. Whatever. John Biner came on Tonight Show and you got up and you left. Whatever. Right.
Right.
But now that stuff is everywhere. Most of what I see on Instagram is comedy. I don't know what people who aren't comedians see, but it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, it's all over TikTok, and it's all over the national conversation in a way that, look, people talked about Vaughn Meter and they talked about Jerry Lewis and they talked about George Carlin. Well, Carlin's a bad example because starting the 70s and 80s is when people started to get this idea that's not for me. I'm going to watch it and then complain about it.
Right.
Right. So I think Carlin, because he became a little political in the Mort Saul, but I'm not political. If you're offended by what I said, it's because you're just a dick. I don't do offensive jokes. People get angry at me that I tell jokes that they think are corny or whatever. What are you angry at me for? If you don't like somebody's political stance, fine. But if I told a joke that's going to make you groan that I thought was funny, don't get angry at me. How did I hurt you? Right. So I think the audience certainly has changed. And I think that's, I think comics today have to be more than just appealing to more than just their audience. They have to appeal to all audience. I mean, Mark Normand is finally, after 20 years of being, 15 years ago, somebody told me that he was opening for Amy Schumer at the Paramount. Could you, if you opened for a headliner at the Paramount again in 1965, 2 years later, everybody knew who you were.
Right, exactly.
Now it just takes so long for anyone to go, all right, I'll give him a shot.
Right.
Or
yeah.
anyone
we'll accept him. Yeah, he'll be the new face.
He'll be whatever. It's so hard because the audience is, and I was saying this to another comic this morning, is comics are often, this comic said that comic did this guy, that guy. My attitude is that we should all be working together. What's good for comedy is good for comedians, and what's good for comedians is good for comedy, right? So I think we should all be working together. The people we should be trying to take out are the people in the audience who suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's all get together and get rid of those fucking people.
Right, exactly. Because I think comedians are, if you look at through the history. From 50s and 60s with like you mentioned Mort Saul, Lenny Bruce, all these guys, and all the way through, Carlin, Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope, whoever, Chappelle, Chris Rock. I think the comedian are always the ones that kind of set the tone for the generation or for the world, and I think comedy is extremely important, and the audience, like people that were complaining like 5-6 years ago, are now starting to get on board and be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that is, I was wrong. That is funny. I don't have the mob behind me anymore. So now, I could laugh at that. I'm allowed.
I'm allowed. Well, we could, all of that is a whole separate thing.
Yeah, that's a whole separate.
That's a whole separate thing.
What I do like about what you're doing too is with your style. And your whole vibe, man, from the look, the voice, the jokes, the writing, you could tell it's you put a lot into it, is that I don't think there's many people doing that. I feel a lot of people are going, either, trying to be the next Chappelle or trying to be the next, Attell or trying to be that. And you're kind of in a lane that seems to be not too many are doing, which I think is a smart move in a way. Is that a thing that you're aware of, or how did that,
It's I think I'm aware of, but it's certainly not on purpose. I mean, I work when I say it's not on purpose, what I mean is I'm not trying to be unique. I just am unique. This is what I want to do jokes about.
Right.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to be vague about this on purpose, but I wrote a joke. I'll write a political joke because I think it's funny. You know what I mean? Johnny Carson could do a joke about Ronald Reagan, and nobody would think Johnny Carson hated Ronald Reagan. They were buddies.
Right, yeah.
Johnny Carson did jokes about how Ronald Reagan was an old fart. Right. And then they went out and played golf together. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
So that's where I come from. Just because I read a joke about it doesn't mean it just means that I found this amusing way to make this point. It doesn't mean that I agree with the point, okay? So I wrote a joke that was very partisan. And I did it on a show where I knew that they would like it. Right. And they got a big laugh. And I was really happy about that. And then after the show, I took a picture with somebody whose body shape was such that I couldn't read their shirt in person. But then when they posted the picture, what it said was was a very political statement that I didn't want to be associated with. Yeah. And I was just like, I just wrote this joke. Right. I did it here because I knew we would get a laugh in this room and that it wouldn't get a laugh in another room.
Right.
But I don't want the people I know to think that that's me. Number one, I am friends with people and I work with people across the political spectrum. Right. Yeah. I have no thoughts. If you're political, great. If it's funny, I'll laugh. If it's not funny, I'm not going to laugh. That's the bottom line. And whether I agree with you or not, or whether I even know what you're talking about. If it's funny, I'll laugh. But I don't want people to associate me with any political style because number one, that could ruin a person's following. And then on top of that, that's not who I am. Right. Yeah. I have a real hard time dealing with other people's negative energy towards me. Right. I have a lot of difficulty dealing with negative energy towards me. So I just don't want people sending that at me. Even if I think they're wrong, I just don't want it. Right. Because so I try and stay away from things politically. And I think that does make me unique. I go out of my way to not say those things. And I won't, and like I said, I had that joke and I didn't post it on social media because I knew it would alienate people. But that's not to toot my own horn. That's one of the great things about writing a lot of jokes is that if I wrote this joke and I think it's really funny, but people are going to take it the wrong way, I'm just going to put it to the side. Right. Maybe I'll find a day to use it. Maybe someday I'll be working for somebody who has no fear about being political and says, give me every joke that aligns with that. Here's 40 jokes I wrote that I was afraid to tell. Right, yeah. Or maybe one day I'll be somewhere and it'll be the perfect joke for that moment. But I don't need to post that because I'll just write another joke.
Went to Dallas. I got one of them JFK Pez dispensers. That's the one where the Pez goes in the front but comes out the side. Okay, I realize that joke doesn't always hit. That's why I have a guy on the other side of the room to tell it from a different angle.
When you see people who get really uptight about certain jokes, you realize they don't have that many jokes.
Right. No, it's true. And I think too that you are, and your style of comedy is a breath of fresh air to all of those other kind of political, no matter what side they're on, comics. And and it's such a polarizing time we're in that I think people, when they go to a comedy show, want to kind of get away from that anyway. So they're looking for this, and they want smart comedy with that's kind of sharp, thinking man, front of the bus in a way style with a little back of the bus flavor in there. And that's what you're bringing. And I think, so kudos to you, man. And it's tough, dude. New York City, to stay away from politics. That's not easy. That's easy. That's easier said than done.
It isn't. It isn't. I mean, I think that it's easier if you can take yourself out of the moment and go, what am I gaining in this moment by arguing with this person about this thing? I'm
Right.
not going to change their mind. They're not going to change my mind. All we're going to do is change the vibe. So if you want to say that to me, fine. I'll walk away and I'll think you're an asshole, and that's the end of that.
That's
I don't
beautifully
have a
said.
problem. I don't have a problem muttering under my breath that you are a fucking jerk off.
No, that's great. I love that. The only thing we're gonna change is the vibe in the room if we talk about this. That's a great quote, man.
One of the things that I like to do is when I see something on social media that really makes me angry, and then I just sit there for a second and I go, before I hit send, I've said my piece. I can hit send. That's not going to change my relationship with the words. I've already put them out.
Right.
I've already said them. I've written them down. I've already said the thing. I've already expressed the thing I needed to express. If I hit send, I don't even know that this asshole is going to even read this.
Right.
What's the value in that? What am I getting out of it? Probably all I'm getting is now I'm in a fucking comment war with somebody, and I'm not gonna change their opinion. All I'm gonna do is change the vibe in this thread.
Yep.
So I'll just leave it alone. And not always. Sometimes I type things and I hit send and I think about it and I hit send and then I go back a minute later and I take it down.
Yeah.
It just doesn't help anybody.
No, it doesn't. And I hate, like, what have we been on Facebook since 2008 now or something like that. And so I've gone through all of it at one point or another, getting into battles online. I haven't done that in about, I don't know, 10 years because
Right.
it's like you said, it doesn't solve anything. All it does is it infuriates, if they get you good, like,
Yeah.
oh, and then, then like you said, and then it goes nowhere.
Like one time at a party, this dude came up to me and said, if you had a time machine, how far into the future would you go? I was like, well, that depends. How long do you expect this conversation to take? Because I would like to go that far into the future.
I could tell that, obviously that you are a writer, and I feel like you put a lot of thought into to your joke style and the writing process, and also the way you structure like your special. I feel like you put a lot of time into thinking, how am I going to do this set list?
Yeah.
Have
For
you
sure.
have you ever thought about writing a film, or have you?
I have a real. Have I thought about writing a film? I have thought about writing a film. I have one film that is done in my head, and I have another one that's almost done. And then I have about 2 or 3 other ideas that I think would make good film. But I have a long form is hard for me. It's hard for me to stick with one idea and really. And like the thing about the drafts and the I could see myself having 80 pieces of a movie and never writing the incidental scene where the guy walks from the store to meet the girl. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'd be interested in the store scene and I'd be interested in the girl scene,
Right.
but then there's like a hole there where what happens there, I don't know, we'll figure it out later. That's my problem. So
Right,
one of the
yeah.
reasons that one of the reasons I do jokes is because I write the joke and it's done. I mean, there is some healthy revising that goes with a joke, but it's a lot easier to revise one joke than it is to revise a whole movie.
Right.
Because, let's say I'm working on one joke right now. I still can do the other. If I'm doing a 15-minute set and I've got 2 minutes of new jokes, the other 12 minutes or the other 13 minutes I don't have to think about, right?
Right.
I'm not going to touch that stuff. I'm working on this one joke and that one joke, and I'll work on those 2 things, and then I'll get them together. And I suppose that that's a way to look at writing a film, but it seems very daunting to me.
Right. I could see you getting a script and punching it up too. Something like that would be down your alley.
I think I would be much better to be the guy who works on the story with the script writer the scriptwriter then writes the script, and then I come back and develop it with them. I think that's more who I am. It's a lot of script writing is, I mean, you got to read that stupid book about how to kill the cat, and you got to read, you got to get that ridiculous program. Otherwise, I mean, I tried to write
the script writing program.
I tried to write some sketches for some stuff during the pandemic, and I found the formatting to be very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's also expensive. Like when you got to buy the program and you got to pay a monthly fee. So just to write a script, it costs you like $10 a month.
Yeah, it's really hard to. It's a whole different thing. It's, Hedberg has that joke. They want me to write a script because they want it's like if they think you can do everything that's related. It's like if you're a cook, can you farm? Right? To me, it's not. It's so different. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all.
I tell you, I was, watching a bunch of your stuff, and I could see you writing. And have you ever sold jokes or written? I could see you writing for like SNL, because like the Lifestyle Report with Adam.
Oh, you like that? That's great. Thank you.
It was it was awesome.
In addition to making face covering mandatory and limiting seating at all events, TV networks have been prohibited from airing emotional backstories on the players. Because as we all know, the virus is transmitted by moisture from the face, and nothing makes my face moist like the story of a former Nigerian diamond mine slave competing in the memory of her dead mother.
Some of those a couple of those have some of the best jokes I've ever written in there. I mean, a couple of them are really amazing, but nobody watched. I mean, if you go back, those things have been up since the pandemic. And during the pandemic, nobody had anything to do. And all I could get was 300 or 400 views on those things, which is why I stopped doing it, because I did all of that myself.
Yeah.
I wrote it. I performed it. I did all the graphics. I shot it. I edited it. I did all of that on my own without the help of anybody.
Wow.
I wanted it to look like a real news piece, because that's what, and I submitted the packet. A few years ago, I was opening for a comedian who's a little bit bigger than I am. And I submitted, he got me involved in this, involved with this other agent who was asking him for packets. So the agent would then send me a request for a packet, and I would send it in. And as far as I knew, he sent them in, but I don't think they're not looking for nobodies. When they're taking a packet, they want to see what you've done before they'll even read your packet. So I did a lot of those, and I wrote some really funny stuff for my SNL packet. And he had me do one for Colbert, and one of the things that they were looking for were these midnight confessions, okay? And so they sent videos of these midnight confession jokes that they were looking for the type of. And they literally had a joke that was word for word a joke I was doing at the time. I'm not saying that they stole it. I'm not saying that at all. Parallel thinking 100%. But that's how right I am for that job, is that I had a joke that was the same as a joke that they paid someone to write on it. So I submitted a bunch of my jokes. Again, they didn't listen. And I've written for other people for roasts. Sometimes people who are comics they get like a corporate job, and they need, now I got to do 45 minutes of roast material about these 6 people. That's a lot to write in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I did that. I've done that sometimes, and I wrote some jokes for some people's, for a couple different people's, like, company party or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, punch this up. Oh, and everyone in the office knows you're a comic, but they don't realize that the reason you haven't seen me do comedy is because I do a lot of pussy jokes, right? And they call me up and they go, I've got 5 jokes that I can do. Help me flesh this stuff out, or help me rewrite this one joke, or whatever. I do a lot of that stuff, and I've written for other people. I used to be on this website called Comedy Wire. That was when they first went live. When they very first went live, they were doing. They were looking for people to write jokes for radio hosts. If you look at my bio, it probably doesn't say that anymore because that was a few years ago. But there was a point where one guy who was like a nationally syndicated radio host bought half a dozen of my jokes over the course of a couple weeks.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I could definitely do, I see you writing for like SNL's The News or things along those lines, or definitely a lot of these late night shows and stuff like that. And it's I think once you tap into that, dude, you're gonna be off and running. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, you put the time in, you're around all these people, whether it's through the lighting director position or actually doing stand up or acting. It's just I think a matter of time before people are like, oh, wait a second, you write jokes.
I mean, I try. I think that there are peers of mine who will take off and will reach out to me and say, now that I'm at a point where I need to continually, I don't really. I don't really see somebody stumbling upon me and deciding to work with me. That just seems perhaps it's a little too negative, but I find that comics are more likely to work with the people that they know. And you got like a Neil Brennan, who's a genius, and he got to be known because he was working with people who was working with people who were becoming famous and who wanted to use him to punch them up, and that's where he became.
Neil Brennan's a perfect example of I could see that happening. Like, let's just say if you teamed up with somebody and you're kind of like the brains behind the brawn type of deal.
Yeah.
Like Neil, how he was with Chappelle and kind of helped launch that show. And I could see that. Now, is that a pursuit you'd be interested in doing, or what are your goals?
It's funny you say that. It's funny because I have a joke about that, but I usually say that anyway. I think I think that I'm a really great short form comic, which is to say that you're not going to laugh more in 6 minutes watching anybody else. Right. After 40 minutes, you're probably not going to have learned anything in your life, but so that's not for everybody. But I think you're going to laugh more listening to me and sing. So I feel like my goal is to get on some kind of late night thing or something where people could see my whole 6 minutes, see that, and then people would come back and start talking to me as a headliner or a long form comic. That's what I see. So anyone who's watching this thing is looking for somebody on their late night television program. If Seth Meyers is watching this, now that he cut the band, he can afford me.
There you go, man. There you go. And like you said too, maybe people start to recognize you from the acting, and just to bring it all back.
It's interesting to say that because I initially tried to be an actor early on in my life, and it'd be interesting to become known as that. Pretty funny. I'd be surprised at people in my high school. That's
what's beautiful about the entertainment world, man. Is it ebbs and flows? You never know where you're going to be, and you've been around it for a long time, and all facets of it, in front of the camera, behind the camera, on stage, off stage, backstage. So that's freaking fantastic, man. And so tell everybody where they could find you and follow you and catch you live. I know you perform a lot at the West Side.
West Side, yeah. So the best place to find me is go to adamtellsjokes.com. That's my website. My show listing is usually accurate. I update it at the beginning of the month. So occasionally some show will get added in the middle of the month. But if it's a big deal, then I'll add it. So West Side Comedy Club, Tuesday night. Every Tuesday at 8:00 is my new joke show that I run, which I'm also becoming is something else I'm becoming a little bit known for in the scene. It's a fun show. It's free. We get comics huge names. Last week I had Adam Ferrara, from Rescue Me.
Yeah, I love him.
I've had TJ Miller. Corey Kahaney is a regular at my show.
Wow.
Al Franken has done it 10 or 12 times.
Wow.
Come to see the show. I get really good comics, and we're all kind of just shooting. It's that open mic vibe without the open mic vibe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they all come in and doing new stuff.
New stuff. Everybody's
shit
doing new
out.
jokes. And I have people who come back week after week after week to see the same comics do a different joke or an evolved version of a joke. That's Tuesdays at 8 o'clock at Westside. It's a free show. The other place I get up regularly is the Grizzly Pear. I have a Monday midnight show that I run there. That's a very different kind of vibe. That is midnight in the Village. If you like the dive bar, if you like the kind of thing if you like the kind of show where I had to develop a thick skin, that's that show for you. I also I work in Atlantic City a lot. I'm headlining at resorts August 17th, whatever that Saturday is, August 17th, I think. You can go to acjokes.com if you want to come see that show.
Yeah, man.
I'll be there the whole weekend, so even if you can't make that one show, you can see me featuring on another show. And then just keep an eye on me online. I mean, my Instagram is AJGABEL. That's and I'm posting jokes constantly, 3 or 4. These days it's more like 2 or 3 jokes a day, but there was a point where I was posting up to 5 jokes a day. Follow me, support me, give me a shout out, share my story with somebody else that you like. Somebody out there, wants to hear from me.
Right on, man. Adam, this has been a awesome time
Thank
talking
you.
with you, man. And I learned a lot. And front of the bus, back of the bus. Also, dude, you just rock, man. We definitely
Thank you
have to have
very much. I
back on.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me, Don, and it's good for you for reaching out to somebody that you don't really know and like actually doing the work to like bring somebody and to broaden your network and broaden both of our networks. Good for you for that. So
Hey,
thank you.
thank you, man. And right on, buddy. I appreciate it. Everybody check him out. Adam Gabel. This guy freaking rocks, man.
Thanks.